Oneness Evolving here, standing out here in my garden. Just going to show you the day before we go inside and I talk to you about what I've been writing today for the God of Me project. And while I show you the day, if you wonder what the God of Me project is, it's this crazy idea that I've had of writing stuff to go on the interweb to help people understand some of the really basic things that have made a massive difference to me to understand about how we work. Because if you don't understand how you work and you don't understand how the world works, it's pretty damn hard to make your life work. And really that's what God of Me is all about. I want to be my own God, my own boss, my own miracle worker, all that stuff. So that's what God of Me is about. And the reason why I'm out here showing you the sky is because this is a Facebook Live, especially if you're on YouTube, you might be wondering. And I've got to wait for it to be live and be shared out to the groups where sometimes people jump on and join me. And so I do this while we wait. And this is the magnolia. Or it will be. I mean, it is, but, it'll turn into flowers in a few months. All of these little green things. Come on, camera. Sort it out. Those are flowers. So it just gets absolutely covered. And you can see I haven't been round and pruned the water shoots out yet. But look, I mean, this is water shoots, right? This is a house plant, or it was 30 years ago, and by hook and by crook it got planted out, and it just goes up, and you can see that I've cut it down many times, and it's turned into a huge monster of a thing. So, yeah, but it is a house plant, often known as Canton lace, or Radermachia, if you want the Latin name. So, yeah, that's happening, but I've got to do the pruning, right? Pruning season is here. This is my next job, or one of them. But right now, we're just going to enjoy the Luculia. It's a beautiful thing. I love this plant. And the leaves, even though they're a little bit battered because it's winter, right, and you get weather, I just love the texture on them. Just find it so beautiful. There's these red spines on, the red, what are they called? I can't remember. It's not the spine of the leaf. But, there's red and there's green and you can see the light coming through them. I just love the pattern. And there's another flower bud. So, that's what it does in the middle of winter. I've never understood why. Something else that's going on here, which I'm enjoying, is this violet, which is just absolutely doing a violet thing. Yeah, they're white, cute little fellas, or fellaresses, and they smell so good. So if you were here, you could smell, and you have to put your nose down on the ground, but aren't they gorgeous? So it's a really nice violet, and it just covers itself with flowers. And of course it gets invaded by weeds, and I've got a little tidying up to do there. But yeah, that's life in a garden. There's always something to do. And I always like to take a look at the hen and chicken fern because it's so beautiful. Let's get up close and enjoy this beautiful repeating pattern, which you find everywhere in nature. Look, there's another native fern in the back there. I'm not going to walk in. And there's a bush with its red berries. I've never known what that one's called, although I'm sure I could find out. And this is just the garden. This is just what it does in winter. I raked up all the cherry leaves and now they're sort of covering the ground. And we still have bright red fuchsia flowers. I'm really enjoying this plant. It's the first year still that I've had it. And it just keeps going. I don't think it ever stops flowering. So it's really rewarding to have something that's so bright and colourful in the middle of winter. What else have we got here? The coriander. I'm sure I showed you this last week, but the coriander is still here and it's flowering. And again, it looks like the fern, doesn't it? These patterns. I just love that about plants. Everywhere you see the same patterns. And last but not least, before we go inside, just have a look at the sky. Those clouds are just drifting by, but it's actually a pretty cold wind. If you look across the road, see our neighbour's flag? Let's see if I can zoom in. See, those flags are fair blowing in the breeze. The top one's the New Zealand flag. I don't actually know what the bottom one is. I plead ignorance. But the point being that there's a chill southerly that's moving those flags along at a fair clip, and the reason why it's not so windy here is because we have a hill behind us. So now I'm going to go inside and tell you what I've been writing about this week. I get to carve out one morning a week to write. I used to think I could push it in the evenings and little bits of time, and then eventually I realised, no, I need a chunk. So I just take one Wednesday a morning a week to do this, because that's just all I can do. Shut the door. But it's, it is what I get to do. Oh, the bottom flag is Anzac. Thank you. Now I know. Of course. It was the end of June, very recently. I'm just so not connected with such things at times. Because I choose to be connected with other things. So, thank you for educating me. Now, I'm inside and doing my thing, and I've got my little list. See, my little list of things to talk about. So, this week, we've been talking about brainwaves for weeks, right? I've been writing about brainwaves for weeks. Excuse me, I'll get my little thing to lean on. I've been writing about brainwaves for weeks because if you want to change your life, you have to change yourself. Nothing is going to change if you don't change. And I mean, I know that sounds really stupid and basic, but many of us, me included, don't understand that you can want and want and want things to be different, and they're not going to change unless I do and be and whatever else differently. Which is all very well to say, right? Think differently, oneness. Feel differently. Do different things. And, I mean, the thing was, for a long time, I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't have a clue. What do you mean, feel differently? I didn't know how to feel differently. All I knew was I felt like crap. For no good reason, I might add, but I just did. I just always felt like crap. So, if you want to change who and how you're being, how do you get to do that? And I always thought it was this thing where, you just have to decide, and you're going to be really goal-oriented, and you're going to make plans, and you're going to follow them through and take actions and all of that. And you know what? I did all of that, but nothing really changed. I still didn't get what I was after. I didn't manage to create the thing I wanted, and believe me, I worked really hard at it. And what I didn't understand, and there's a whole lot that I haven't talked about yet because, one thing at a time, was that it was the way I was being. It was the actual kind of person that I was thinking and feeling and then behaving like. Like the behavior was a side effect of the fact that I was thinking a certain way and feeling a certain way all the time, and I wasn't aware of that. That was the first thing. And secondly, I didn't know how to change that. It was the second thing. And the third thing was I did not know why it was so damned hard to change that. What do you mean? So what I now understand is that there is a 95% of us that we don't know about that's pretty much running our lives unless we start to pay attention and go, oh my God, that's just who I've always been being, and I've no idea until now, nearly 58 years in this body, that I was being like that. Crazy shit. And yet this is everybody. The person who always does that particular behavior, and everybody in the room or the family or whatever is thinking, oh my God, they're doing it again. And they have no idea that they're behaving like an idiot or telling the same story for the 50th time. That they're not aware, and they're also not aware of how everyone else is responding. They're just, it's programmed, it's automatic, it's unconscious. They are unconscious to who they're being. And you can say, oh, well, they're always like that, and because they're always like that, this is what always happens to them. We all know those people too. The people who are always dramatic, and so they're always having problems in their lives. And conversely, the people who are always happy, and they just have more good stuff come to them in their lives. And I understood this in principle, but I didn't know how to become one of those happy people that has good things happen to them. I just had no clue. And so part of what I've learned that is helping me to change is understanding how my brain works. Because if you're gonna be a different person, or if you're gonna have a different life, which is what most of us want, we want a different life, right? We want something about ourselves or our lives to change. Well, to do that, you're gonna have to do some different things. But why do you do something? Normally it's because you've thought something. You've made a decision or a choice, or you've reacted or responded to someone or something or someplace. Something in your outside world has elicited a response from you. But that comes back to a thought. You have a thought, or you have an emotion, you have a feeling. All that stuff's going on, and it's all inside you. It's nothing to do with what's outside you. And you're thinking, okay, but I don't want to feel angry or upset or whatever it is about that person that I had for the last 10 years. And yet still I'm doing it. How come I can't stop feeling that way? And that was me. And what I didn't understand is how my brain works. Because the me that's saying, I don't know how to stop feeling that way, and I want to stop feeling that way, is not the part of me that's actually doing the feeling that way. And the piece of me that is doing that feeling that way is unconscious. And so my conscious mind hasn't got a way to change my conscious mind, or I didn't have a way to change my conscious mind. Now I do. But what I'm explaining at the moment is about brainwaves. Because our unconscious mind, a lot of it's formed in our first 7 years. It's not the only that keeps going, right? But the big foundation, it's like, a set of goggles that we put on is the way we see the world without realizing it. Because we wear these goggles 24/7, 365. It influences everything we perceive about ourselves and the world and everything else. And it's also got a lot of program responses and reactions, and this is how the world is and everything else. And we just believe it, and we don't know. When we're 50 and we're still, going off at somebody like we were 22. And the 22-year-old reacted because of something that happened when they were 3. So really, we're 50, but we're reacting like a 3-year-old. And we've all seen people do that. They just lose their rag. And it's not a conscious thing. It's unconscious. When that happens, the part of the brain that can consciously think and make a choice about how to respond is not there. It's gone. And in the writing that I was doing, I thought people are going to read this who've done the previous bits of this learning that I'm putting together, and they're going to think, oh, this sounds familiar, and it's because it is. But now I'm relating it to brainwave states. This week, finally, I get to tell you, I wrote about beta brainwaves. Yay! Because in our first 7 years, right, we get to be the first 2 years, we're in delta, we're asleep with our eyes open. That's why babies sleep so much. And then from age 2 to age 7, we're in theta brainwaves, and we're in a hypnotic state, and everything just goes in. We do not have the ability, by and large, to question anything that's around us, analyse it, or decide if it's true or false, or right or wrong. It just goes in. It's just how the world is. It's how life is. It's how we are. And that is the big chunk of our unconscious mind, our unthinking brain. It runs our unconscious mind. Is just it's running when we're not thinking about it. When you're driving the car, what's going on in your head when you're focusing on the world? Your unconscious mind is running. When you're busy solving a problem, your unconscious, that voice that goes chatter, chatter, chatter in your head when you're trying to focus on something. That's your unconscious mind. Default mode networks. They can be really nasty. So, anyway, vastly off topic, but I'm trying to put some context around this. So if we want to change, that's our unconscious mind. And in the last few weeks, I've been writing about our conscious mind. And the conscious mind exists in alpha brainwave states, which is a bit faster than theta. And after you turn age about 7, then the brain speeds up and goes into alpha, which is a very creative state. And it's relaxed and it's inwards and you can make believe and it's real to you. And then somewhere around the age of 13, again, everybody's different, but the general agreement is age 13, the brain speeds up again. It goes into beta brainwave states. And beta, it starts at 15 cycles a second and goes up. Or is it 13? it starts at 13 cycles a second and goes up. And I mean, the first thing, because so you have delta, theta, alpha, and beta. But beta itself, because it starts at 13 cycles a second and goes up, they've actually divided it, the researchers, the scientists, the people who deal with brains, have divided it up into 3 separate ranges. So you have low, mid, and high range beta. And each of those ranges of beta brainwaves correlates to a different state of being that we experience. And that's what I was writing about this week. So low range beta brainwaves are hopefully what you're in listening to me now, because you're relaxed. I mean, if you're running a marathon or you're doing something really demanding, you don't have the brain space to do this. You've got to be relaxed enough that you can chill out and listen. So you're in low beta brainwaves and you are processing information that's coming in from the outside world, and you're thinking, you're analysing, you're putting things together, you're deciding if I'm talking crap or if you think this is right or whatever. But you're just, you're quite chilled out and you're doing that. And there's nothing in your immediate environment that says, you need to get up and move and go do something. That's low beta. And when I was writing about this, I thought, well, but I've just been talking about the state where you're relaxed and you're chilled out in alpha. So what's the difference between relaxed and chilled out in alpha and relaxed and chilled out in low beta? And the difference is that if you were in alpha, you'd be zoned out. You wouldn't even be listening to me. You'd be in your own inner world of thoughts and feelings, and nothing else would really exist to you. And I talked about this last time, because I know that I do this on the odd morning when I decide to lie in bed and sort of doze and sleep. And when I'm not dozing, I'm in alpha. I'm considering, I'm thinking, I'm putting ideas together, or I'm just musing. And the rest of the world doesn't exist. Alpha shuts out the outside world. Same as when you close your eyes. As soon as you close your eyes, low beta is pretty much gone. It's just suppressed when you close your eyes. It's a really fast way to get your brain to slow down. It's not the only thing to do, but it helps. So low beta, relaxed but outwardly focused. You're dealing with information that's coming to you from your outside world. Then we have mid-range beta. And mid-range beta, so low-range beta is 13 to 15. Mid-range beta is 15 to 18. And that's the state that you're in when you're performing. If you're going to participate, you're going to perform for a bunch of friends and family, a cultural performance or music or a sports game, or you're going to do a test, you're going to do an exam, something where you have to be amped up and a bit on it, but you're feeling well prepared, right? You can have nerves, but you're not stressed out, you're not freaking out. It's just like, okay, I got to go for this. That's mid-range beta, and it's a state of high performance. You're prepared, you're on it, you're in the zone, you're ready to go. And then you have high beta. And high beta is really different, because for the brain to go into high beta, which is 18 and up, and it can get very high, the brain has to have recognized something in the environment that says, oh, that's a threat. And then this ancient survival mechanism in the brain trips, or switches on, actually is the better word. Like there's a switch that gets tripped, and the survival system switches on, and the thinking system switches off. And I write about this, and I've talked about this a lot in the past, because I've talked about our survival brain and how when we notice a threat in the environment, which is when the brain goes into high beta, our thinking brain, which you can use when you're in alpha and in low beta and in mid-range beta, it's all available to you. The thinking, creative, problem solving brain, all of that is there. In high beta, blood flow is directed away from the thinking brain. And that's why when you're suddenly stressed out, you can't think. There's no blood flow going there. Where's the blood flow going? It's going to your hindbrain, because that's where all of the really instinctual and habitual and programmed, and I don't have to think about it, responses and actions and habits and skills and everything else live. That's the first place it goes. The second place it goes is to your legs and arms. Because if you are, a wildebeest in Africa and you're grazing happily, and then, out of the corner of your eye, you see the whole herd starting to move because a lion's coming and chasing you or somebody close to you, the system switches on and says, okay, we don't need to digest that mouthful of grass we just took, and that cut that we got last week doesn't matter. All of the blood flow needs to go to my legs and my lungs, and it needs to go to the part of to my eyes and my ears, and I got to perk up and wake up and be ready to run, and I got to get out of here, and I got to look at my environment, every little detail of it, with great acuity and alertness and attention, because that's what I need to do to survive. And that's what happens when we're in high beta. The thinking part of the brain is not available. We become, at that stage, a cornered animal that needs to survive. And that is why people will do really crazy things when they're in survival. The thinking part of the brain's not there to say, hey, there's some really bad consequences that are going to hit you like a ton of bricks if you do this. It's not there. All there is the ancient mammalian brain saying, you have to do what you have to do to survive. And that's pretty important to understand, because if that's the piece of you that's always going off, if you're constantly in fear or in anger or in stress or sorrow, all of those things are survival emotions, well, then you can't find solutions to stuff. It's not available to you. And why that's important is, if you understand that, well, then obviously you think, okay, how on earth am I going to get out of high beta and even out of mid-range beta, because you're still pretty amped up there? How am I going to slow my brain down to not be, I can't think anymore? And that's the question that God of me is aiming to answer. But to really understand the answer, you got to understand the question. And so that's why I'm explaining these brainwave states. And, it was pretty easy to type that, because I understand this stuff really well, and I've explained it without talking about the brainwave states before now. Now I have been able to say, well, this is the thing. And actually, I was at the end of my writing session, I was kind of struggling with thinking, how am I going to relate this all together? And I could probably listen to what I just said to you in this video and take that down, because I want to connect it together. It's like, oh, you have this brainwave state, and this is how you're feeling, and this is what's going on. I've talked about all this stuff before, but I haven't said it's because you're in this brainwave state. So that piece I just talked, which means I can write it. The piece that I'm still wrestling with is to make a really proper and clear connection in writing. Because, when you're talking, you can rabbit around things and make big, long, whirly, wriggly sentences, and you pull it all together. But in writing, it has to be clear, it has to be concise, and I don't want to miss anything out. And to actually say, this is an important piece, and I'll probably do battle with it next week. Or maybe I won't do battle. Maybe I'll just work through it and have it be great. Hello, lovely people. It's lovely to see you on. The piece that I'm going to work out next week is how do I explain simply and clearly that the 7 years that we spend in Delta and Theta, we lay down a lot of unconscious memories. They're not the only unconscious memories that we'll ever get, because if you do anything repeatedly over and over and over again, it becomes unconscious. Hi, Bernadette, it's you. Yay! I'm making you feel hot? Oh, that's funny. Well, I guess in summer that's a bit of a problem. Here right now, being hot is good. It's cold. So we have this unconscious 7 years that we create, that we memorize stuff because we have to learn how to be human, and we can't go to school to learn how to be human. We just have to be in Theta and Delta and absorb it all like a sponge. And that's fine. We have to do that. And those are a lot of unconscious memories. And then we make more by repeating and practicing. I mean, you do that learning to walk and write and talk and play games and do maths and whatever else it is that you're learning as you grow up. The point being that we keep making more unconscious memories. But what we don't understand, I certainly didn't understand, is that 7 years is like a big old filter that you put on, you never take off. And it influences everything else that you perceive. So, to use an ugly example, because it's just come to mind, if you grow up in a place, in a family, where, for example, you have an abusive parent, whatever that one parent, and we're not the other one, right? I'm using this to make an example. I'm not even going to say which one it is because I don't want to do that. But whichever parent it is that's abusive, and maybe emotionally, maybe physically, maybe sexually, who knows? You may never meet another person quite like them, and you may avoid those kinds of people. But there's an unconscious bias in the way you perceive everybody who in any way reminds you at all of that person, and you're not conscious of how they remind you. Because when you're in that survival situation where someone's being horrible to you, your brain pays attention and says, I've got to remember this so I can look out for it and run the hell away from it the next time it starts to look like it's going to happen. So your parent is like this, who's abusive, and then you see another person, and I've had this happen, by the way, not because I'm a parent, but there was a person, I was in a workplace, and really they were horrible. And, the counterpoint to that was that I was a victim, right? And it's never just one way, but they were a really unpleasant person. Years and years and years and years and years later, like 2 or 3 years ago, I met somebody who physically reminded me of them, not even remotely the same person. But the physical memory of them triggered that memory, and I thought, oh, they remind me of this person, because I felt myself responding. I felt myself reacting. I thought, what's going on? Hang on a minute. Oh, they remind me of that. My body had not forgotten that experience. It was unpleasant. It was very painful. And then I just projected it onto them. It's really cool. It's unconscious memory. It's a bias. It's a filter. It's a lens. And you remember that all of those memories are neurosynaptic connections in your brain, and everything else you learn is added on to those same connections. So they're like the building blocks of your house, your city, your Minecraft that you're putting together. But those fundamental connections are there, and they influence everything else that's attached to them. And so this is the thing. This is how the 95% of us that we don't recognize and don't understand and don't see works, to keep us how we are, even when we don't want to be that way. And to change ourselves, we actually have to be able to get into that unconscious and change it there. You can't change that part of yourself by thinking positively. It doesn't work. I know. I've tried. And you can be reborn and start all over again in the same life, Bernadette. You don't have to jump out of your body and get a new one. I can say that because I'm doing it. It is damned hard work and at times very difficult, but it is so rewarding to actually be able to overcome myself and my past. I'm not there yet. I'll be doing it for the rest of my life. But, for me, that's what life is about now, is overcoming those programs that I haven't even recognized were there and discovering that I can find freedom. And that's what God and me is about. That's what God and me is about. So I just love sharing this information. Thank you for joining, and I just love having you here. And if you're able to join me on Patreon, even just jump on as a free follower, I know that channel is just starting up. It's this process of thinking, oh, I can do this for my patrons, and I can do this for my free followers, and I can do this and I can do that, and it kind of puts itself together, and I'm learning not to push it. So however you wish to participate, I love having you there. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Feel free to subscribe and to like and join in. And I look forward to giving you the next installment next week. Until then, big hugs and lots of love. Bye-bye.